Support for this podcast comes from Frito-Lay and the 2023 Snack Bracket Championship. The Frito-Lay Snack-A Challenge is underway, and fans are voting on their favorite snacks to crown champion. We're talking about prime-time matchups between the best 64 snacks in the land. Will Ruffles Ridges reign supreme? Can Doritos defend their dynasty? Or will Smart Food use their smarts for a surprise upset? Only you can decide. Get in on all the action for a chance to win up to $1,000 or a year's worth of snacks. Let your snacks be heard. Just go to fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com to vote and enter for a chance to win. No purchase necessary. Sweepstakes ends April 3rd, 2023. Void where prohibited. Year's worth of snacks awarded in the form of 52 coupons, each good for one bag of chips. See official rules at fritolaysnacket.sbnation.com.
This is the Black Gold Banneret Podcast. Now, here are your hosts, Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, and Brian Murphy.
The 2-2. Ornelas hits one to deep left field. See ya later! Knights walk off the Gators. 8-6 on a 2-run homer by Karissa Ornelas. It's great to be a Knight tonight here in Orlando.
Wow, Eric Lopez.
Wow, indeed, my friends. Welcome, everybody. That is what you call a dramatic.
You haven't slept.
No, literally, I haven't slept. I helped you write an article. I rewatched the game. I watched the baseball game, and I read Brian Murphy's article on the baseball game all overnight.
Awesome. So how about that? UCF Softball getting the walk-off victory against the Florida Gators here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We'll talk about that. We'll also talk about baseball totally not winning in dramatic fashion. Brian Murphy is here for that. Oh, my God, that was bizarre.
It was great. It was baseball, baby.
It's
such a walk-off Wednesday, huh?
It's walk-off Wednesday. So we've got that. Spring practice is in full swing. We'll also catch you up on volleyball's last weekend of regular season plays coming up. Just lots to talk about here on the podcast. Remember, you can always follow us at UCF_Banneret, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret, and of course, blackandgoldbanneret.com, where you would get our recap of UCF softball, number 24 in the country. That's probably going to change next week. They beat the number 5 ranked Florida Gators at home in a thriller, 8-6, capped off by the walk-off homer that you just heard from Karissa Ornelas, a 2-run shot with 1 out that gave UCF the victory. They were down 5-1 in the third, came back to tie. They were down 6-5 in the bottom of the 7th, tied it on a double, and then won it. Eric, you did the game for ESPN Plus. Holy smokes, what a game.
Yeah, that's an understatement. That's one way of putting it. I mean, we could put a lot of expletives in there, but it is a family show. So
good thing you didn't, because you were on the air.
Oh, yeah, trust me. It wasn't easy. Look, it was an amazing game. I mean, amazing event, amazing sporting event. I mean, if that's a game that I could share to a lot of people, and they'll convert them to being a softball fan. That game had a little bit of everything. And it showed, I think, a lot about why this Knights team is different than past Knights teams. I brought it up on the broadcast. Past Knight teams, as good as they weren't built to come back from a 5-1 deficit against a Florida pitching staff that, by the way, came into the game with a 1 ERA, which was 6 in the country. Mm-hmm. And UCF just put up 8 runs on them, scored the most runs against Florida this year. And this team has no quit. They can score in many different ways. They can small ball, but power game. And it's kind of ironic, Jeffrey. It was the 700th win of the program's history, which I'll write about as well on later on here on Black and Gold Banneret. But think about this. Stephanie Best was in attendance, the first ever recruit, the first ever UCF Athletic Hall of Famer.
Steph was there?
Yeah, she was in attendance.
Awesome.
Among many people, the UCF football team, many members of them are there. A shout out to them because they were loud and rowdy.
I saw them jumping around in the crowd after the game was over. That was pretty awesome.
It was insane, and an insane atmosphere. And they raised the capacity to about 50% this week, and it's good timing. But yeah, Stephanie Best was in attendance, first recruit ever, first Hall of Fame ever, watching UCF hit 3 home runs, the number that she wore One of them being a shortstop, Georgia Blair, who's probably the second greatest, could go down as the second greatest hitter in program history by the time her career is done, and watches them win it on a walk-off home run to win 700th win in a program history. You couldn't make I don't think that would pass in Hollywood in a script like that. And it was just a game that just had a little bit of everything. I mean, these are two great teams, top 25 matchup, back and forth. It was a slugfest, and it had a little bit of everything. It had our first ever softball shift. Murph, you would have loved that. Tim Walton. Yeah. Got 5 infielders, 2 outfielders. They call it the Chronister 5 because the lefty pitcher for Florida, Katie Chronister, comes in. That's what they go to is 5 infielders and have the ball hit to the left side. So you have that advanced analytics. And even in the 7th inning, Knights down 1, Shannon Doherty gets hit by a pitch. Jada Cody, the cleanup hitter, coming up to the plate. And as Sydney Ball-Malone, Coach Bear, in the postgame admits, she thought about bunting Jada Cody, and she usually bunts down 1 in the 7th, but she decided not to. Here's Coach Ball-Malone's explanation.
The only thing that if I could change anything was defensively that one big inning. Other than that, Aaliyah White, wow, what a game. G got some good innings in there too, and it's hard to get those hitters out. And so that was huge. But the fight from our offense, we've battled. We've been hitting well, but we still battled the last couple of series is scoring runs. And I just love how they made adjustments. They passed the bat. Some of their outs were super loud. And just at the end, I'm going to tell you, I don't think I've ever played a game where in the 7th inning we're down by 1 and I don't bunt. But I told our assistants and I told Jada, I don't know that I'm going to bunt you because I did it in the other 2 innings and we didn't score from it. So I think we're just going to go for it. And she made me look really smart. But no, she made the risk well worth it. And then Karissa there coming through. Holy cow.
Honestly, when Coach Bear came up to me and was talking to me, I knew, I got this. I was just thinking all our players are on my side, and I was just ready, just sack fly, just thinking to the outfield and have them go over. And, yeah.
What went through your mind as that ball crossed the fence and you realized you just won the game?
I didn't realize it until I was at second. I was like, oh, that's over. And then I was just excited to get home and celebrate with my team.
What does this win mean? You had a big game of the weekend against South Carolina. You feel real confident at the plate right now, don't you?
Yes, I do. Just looking for my pitch, and then if it's outside, just keeping my butt in and going oppo. Just doing it for my team and the situation.
Tell me about the Jada at-bat, because that was a huge at-bat. She kept fouling pitches after pitch, after pitch against Hightower and got that huge hit over the center fielder to tie the game up. But not only did she tie the game up, but you were able to see a lot of pitches as a result, right?
Yes, just eroding the pitcher. That's what we always talk about. She did a great job and just finished it for the game.
Tell me about Aaliyah coming in relief, coming in the bases loaded. And she walked the 1 run, but she was fantastic, gave us a chance to win the game. She becomes the first UCF pitcher ever to beat Florida twice in a career. Tell me what you saw catching her or what she had tonight.
I knew we had all the confidence in her. I knew she was in there for this situation, and she was just doing her game, and I was lucky to catch her for it.
What was the mood in the dugout? You had given up that 5 runs in the 3rd, but then Georgia Blair hits that 2-run homer, and then Shannon follows up with the home run. Did that kind of light a fire there? And, it seems like once that homer is like, okay, we know we're going to come back, and I sense that you were confident even when you're down 5, knowing you would come back.
Oh, yes. We knew 5 runs isn't going to shut out our team. We know we're big hitters, and we'll do anything to get on, and that's what we did.
What does the last 2 games mean? You beat South Carolina on the road, scored 10 runs on them. You scored 8 runs tonight on a team that was the number 6 team in the country in ERA, one of the best pitching staffs. This has got to give your offense as a whole and yourself a lot of confidence moving forward to conference play.
Oh, yes. We know we're going to keep this confidence up, and we're just going to play our game and not worried about who's on the other side.
That was Coach Ball-Malone, and, of course, there you also heard Karissa Ornelas, the hero of the game. But I want to bring in Brian Murphy on this because Brian Murphy has been an outspoken critic of bunting. in general, but especially bunting.
He's not the only one, but he's a little bit more vocal than yours truly, Eric.
Correct. When it comes to baseball and softball, but bunting, especially with hitters in the middle of the lineup. And here in the bottom of the 7th, Coach Ball-Malone admits usually she bunts in that situation. She let Cody hit away. Cody hits the double to drive in the tying run to the plate. 2 batters later, Ornelas hits the walk-off home run. Murph, this was a vindication for you.
Yeah, and I wish teams would do this more often. It boggles my mind to hear her say that she's down when she's down a run in the 7th, she would do this. I mean, you're basically admitting you're going to give up one of your last 3 outs when you're already trailing. It just doesn't make it really does not make much sense. And I know people will never agree on this and people see it different ways, but like when you bunt, especially with, when you bunt with the middle of your lineup, especially, you take away so many options of getting the runner over or possibly scoring that run, or maybe even better, hitting a home run. With a great bunt, you can move a person in the scoring position, and maybe there's an error or where the batter gets on base. That's great. And if they, but they can also pop it up. They can also, have a bad bunt that goes back to a pitcher that don't play or something like that. So many more better things that can happen when you let kids swing away. And that goes for every level of baseball too. And especially with people like Cody, who, like we saw, Eric, can drive the ball to deep center. Why don't you just let her try to do that instead? Thankfully she did.
Eric, do you think that Florida was expecting Cody to bunt?
That's a great question. No, I mean, not in that sequence, because Cody was at 2-2 count. She had been fouling pitches off, so the bunt play was off at that point.
That's right. Yep, good point.
So not in that scenario. I don't think they were expecting the bunt there, but she just kept fouling pitches off against the Hightower and hit. And then, when Ornelas came to the plate, she kept fighting. And that was the thing. As Ornelas in my interview with there, and you can, by the way, watch my entire interview, obviously there with Karissa, but as well as obviously Coach Ball-Malone's postgame and Jada Cody's postgame on our YouTube page on the Black and Gold Banneret. But their philosophy is eroding pitching. And what they mean by that is just erosion of their pitches. Just make them use up a lot of pitches and wear them down. And that's what they did against this Florida pitching staff throughout the night, making them work. Even though Florida basically went by committee, I mean, they were getting hits against the shift. They made the adjustments, and then Aaliyah White, in relief of Gianna Mancha, picks up the win, the first night pitcher ever to beat the Florida Gators twice in her career. I mean, that's a pretty good tall deal there, and it's just a memorable night, a huge win, their second top 5 win of the season. They beat Arizona at home on March 8th. They were ranked 2nd. They beat Florida here, was ranked 5th in the country. But I think this obviously it's extra, I think a little extra sweet because of who the opponent is in Florida, the way the game played out, dramatic fashion. I mean, this was the number 3, Ornelas' home run is the number 3 play in SportsCenter, top plays. When was the last time UCF had a top play that high in the rankings in SportsCenter? Was it?
No, it might have been Hughes. I don't know. It might have been. Oh no, it was probably JJ Wharton.
Well, no, Mike Hughes had to make top 10 plays.
Oh no, it made top 10, but I think Wharton probably had to have ranked higher. I think he was like the number 1 play for like a while because they kept showing like the number 1 play overall.
Maybe.
So I think it was Wharton was the only one that was higher.
That's pretty good. So memorable game. I think it's the greatest softball game I've ever seen in person in 14 years. And I know that sounds very knee-jerk reaction, but that game had everything. Like, it had everything that you wanted. It had offense, but it had some great defensive plays, had pitching. I mentioned there was a softball shift. We got advanced analytics shifts, Murph, in softball. I couldn't believe it.
We're shifting. All right, so let's zoom out for just a second, okay? Because here's where the rubber meets the road for UCF. Conference play starts this weekend. They're doing 4-game sets in softball this year. And they start at home against Houston, doubleheader Friday, and then a game Saturday and a game Sunday. RPI this year, Eric. We've made fun of the RPI all year, especially in volleyball because it's dumb and it's broken in volleyball this year. But it's not that broken in softball because UCF is at 33, Florida is at 4, and Arizona, who UCF beat earlier this year, where are they? I don't even. They went down to 31. But that win over Florida is big because they were 21-2 coming in. So what does this do for UCF in the RPI to what and insofar as it matters this year? And then what will conference play look like for the Knights as they start up against Houston?
Well, I think RPI is going to help them a lot. Obviously, that's a huge win. Top 10. I have sources who can give me live RPI numbers for softball, so I'm actually trying to get that. So if I don't get it by this,
just at it here, Murph. Here we
go. If I don't get this, I'm hoping to get you that live number for. If I don't get it by this segment, I'll get it by the end of the show. But look, it's going to help it, no question about it. It's significant to have 2 top 5 wins. That's going to grab a lot of people's attention. For sure. I mean, and that was the game of it was the game, the marquee game of the night in the country. And I'm going to say this for the millionth time. The benefit of being on ESPN Plus is significant. I'm telling you, you wouldn't believe some of the major players in the sport of college softball that were watching this game, that were messaging me, from coaches across the country to executives on television, important people watching this game, because this was the marquee game of the country in college softball. You cannot buy the exposure that ESPN provides for you in these platforms. I mean, I'm sorry. I mean, criticize Mike Oreska all you want, but he made the right deal. So I'm just going to say that again, because it is significant. And I do think now for the American, you mentioned, they're the number 5 strongest conference in college softball, according to the RPI. So that's going to help them. But you're right. Houston's a rival. These two programs have gone back since 2006 when they were in Conference USA, and they battled for championships. They had a great rivalry with Angel Chamberlain and Allison Keim going at it. That's no different. They're a young team this year, Houston, but they've beaten Oklahoma State in the top 10. They've beaten Baylor, who's in the top 25. So, I mean, they're loaded. They're young, but they're definitely capable. And you're right. You make a great point. UCF is as dramatic of a win as this is, and even Coach Ball-Malone said in the postgame, they kind of have a 60-minute window where they could celebrate, and then they move on. So they got to move on to Houston. It's a 4-game series, as you mentioned, so it's hard to sweep a team with 4 games. Honestly, I don't think you could expect sweeps or many sweeps at all, if any, in conference play. It's too difficult on that. So, by the way, live RPI here only on the Black and Gold Banneret, exclusive here. UCF up to 28.
That's it.
Look at Eric Lopez just wielding his power in real time.
Thank you. Real time.
Really,
that is a flex if we've ever seen one, man.
Really,
now wait a second though. Win over the number 4 team in the country moves you up only 5 spots.
It's early. Only a handful of games were played Wednesday. You got to give it time to digest. Kind of like when you have that great food dinner, it's not going to immediately make that great impact. You got to wait a little while to kind of digest it, and then it'll kick in. By the way, I disagree with you.
Really, that's not the best metaphor.
Maybe it wasn't. But
I usually feel worse after a big dinner than when I'm actually in the time of eating it.
Where you might want to look into where you've been eating, but that's a whole other story. I disagree with you, but the RPI is still drunk in softball. Maybe not as bad as volleyball.
Drunk.
It's still drunk because it's got Villanova number 8 in the RPI and your favorite school, Liberty, at number 9, among others. And it's got like Maryland, Baltimore County. Remember that school that beat
UMBC?
In the opening? Yeah, they're in the top 25. That ain't lasting. All right, it ain't lasting.
I'm looking at the one on the NCAA site, and they have Wichita State at 21st. UCF isn't even the top team in the RPI in the American.
Well, I'm looking at the live RPI exclusively here on the Banneret that I have access to, not anybody else has. All right? I'm the Woj of softball for a reason.
He's treating this. He's treating this
access and just flinging it over our heads. It's just great.
He's treating it like the Pentagon Papers.
That's great. He's treating it like he's got an alligator by the tail and he's just swinging it around. Like here's your RPI right here.
It's a good number, by the way, from a resume standpoint. 28. Wichita State's very good. By the way, Wichita State comes here in April. That is going to be a showdown for the league. If we preview the American Conference, since it is starting this weekend, UCF's the favorite, but I think Wichita State has just as much firepower offensively. That could be your top two teams. Then you got South Florida with Georgina Corrick's probably the best pitcher in the league. I think those are your
two.
Yeah. So those are your top three teams probably in the league. Houston's very young, but as I mentioned, they're capable of beating anybody. So, it's going to be a battle in this league. And UCF, you're right. They got to take care of business in the league. This is a team that's hungry. And I think that, I'm interested to see how they come out. Friday's a doubleheader because in a 4-game series, you're going to have a doubleheader. It just so happens Friday's this one, 4 o'clock, 6:30. So we'll see how they come out after this emotional win against Florida, against the Houston team that's going to be gearing up for them. But, it's they're in play here. They're in play. A dramatic night. Props to the football players that gave the support to the players. They were aware of it. And even the people that were there that, 50% capacity, people in the outfield, everybody wearing masks. Appreciated all that. Just a great night overall. And, as I said on the broadcast, it's great to be a night tonight here in Orlando.
Some of the folks out in the outfield with the pickup trucks were getting peppered by fly balls that were getting hit.
That's where the action's coming, man.
I know. That's the best seat in the house, to be honest with you. All right, so you worked last night with Francesca and Nea, who of course is a great
phenomenal analyst, by the way.
Great analyst. You guys were great. She said something interesting. She said she didn't want to say it during the telecast, but you said it on your recap afterwards that she felt like UCF was just going to find a way to win.
She did. And she told me that before the game even started. So I got to give her props on that.
And I think it goes to their hitting. That's how you do that. You find a way to win through hitting, and to score 8 runs on that vaunted Florida pitching staff is a real achievement that they've been able to do. And these two are not done. They're going to rematch again on the 14th of April.
Yeah.
At UF. Boy, are they going to be pissed when UCF.
It'll be dramatic, but that's what this rivalry is about. 26. By the way, 18 runs in the last 2 wins against South Carolina on the road. Let's not forget that, because that's an important win too. 10-4 on Sunday to salvage a game, and then 8 runs here tonight. That's pretty impressive. 18 runs against 2 top 25 teams from the Southeastern Conference, and and they still, as you mentioned, they still go to Florida. They still go to Ole Miss, so they're not done with the SEC. But they got to focus here in the American Conference play here. But what a night. It was a dramatic night, an amazing sport. If you watch that game, you have to be hooked on softball. You now understand why. I've been hooked for it for 14 years. And in my opinion, and it's in a lot of people's opinion, right now it's the top 4 college sport in the country, behind football, obviously men's basketball, and then Murph's favorite, baseball. That's the top 4 most popular college sports right now by any metric you want to look. The TV viewers, social media interaction.
Like you said, I think that game opened up a lot of eyes, and people. Again, it's so good that people get to see this on ESPN Plus, and the way the UCF won that game, the dramatic ending, the opponent. I think people are if they were not aware of UCF softball and the season they're having, they are now. So I'll ask you this: if they're just sort of coming on board with UCF softball after that win, and I do hate making a lot out of one victory, but I'm going to right now. They've beaten Florida. They've beaten number 2 Arizona. 20 and when you look at the team right now, what is their end of season ceiling? What is the high water mark for this team if things break right for them?
Well, they could definitely win the conference championship. I think they're the preseason favorite. They legitimately can win the conference championship. It's probably going to come down to that Wichita State series and the South Florida series, but they can definitely win the regular season title. Conference tournaments are always a crapshoot, but they could certainly win that. I think they're definitely an NCAA tournament team. I don't know if they can host. I don't think they can host, unfortunately. We've gone through this dog and pony show before when it comes to the committee. They're probably going to be sent to Florida again or Florida State if I had to bet, unless this team just went on a tear and really just made it almost impossible for them not to host. But the ceiling's high. And the thing is, with this offense, they're going to be a threat in the regional. They're not going to be a pushover. They have the pitching. The biggest thing is you got Aaliyah White and Gianna Mancha. Can they get a third pitcher, whether it be Brianna Vasquez bouncing back or one of the freshmen, to get them some innings during conference play in a 4-game series? Could be a key factor here if they can win the league, or maybe, and be the difference between that and dropping a game that they shouldn't. But the ceiling's high. They can win the league. They can be an NCAA tournament team, and I expect them to be a top 25 team all year round. So the sky is the seal. There is no ceiling right now. Who knows how far they can go? That's kind of what's fun about it.
All right. Well, they got to come back to earth real quick for that Houston doubleheader on Friday, 4 and 6:30. Then Saturday at 3 and Sunday at 12. ESPN Plus for that. And Eric, you'll be on the call for all four. Is that right?
That is correct. I'll be joined by Jamie Loprice, former Texas A&M Aggie great. She'll be joining me as Francesca will be doing Florida LSU on SEC Network. So she does a great job as well. So a big 4-game series. Great to see Houston use it. By the way, first American Conference game since 2019, as Jada Cody reminded me. She hadn't played in a conference series yet because we didn't play one last year. So that'll be kind of cool to finally have some American Conference softball action starting this weekend in softball and soon in baseball.
Yep, that's right. So that's a perfect segue, Eric Lopez. Very well done by you, because we are going to talk about baseball. Coincidentally last night at the time both games were tied, UCF and Florida in softball and UCF at Florida State in baseball. Wild game again in Tallahassee that didn't go the way that UCF wanted. Even though they were up, they went to extra innings. UCF got a run in the top of the 10th to go up 5-4, and then Brian Murphy. Weird crap started happening. I will let you describe it, because if I tried to describe it, I'll just get it wrong. And you're really good at describing things. So what in the world happened?
Well, that's not good. So I wrote about this for this site.
No pressure or anything.
I couldn't help myself. I had to write about this because you usually don't want to describe a loss, but this loss was special. So what happened was,
it certainly was special.
Special. Coming out for the 10th inning, David Litchfield coming out for his, I believe would have been his 3rd inning of work. And he had pitched, 2 really good innings. Or he pitched, he had pitched, yeah. And so he starts out by hitting the first batter, Ryan Romano, who actually, a quick aside, Ryan Romano for FSU is Nick Romano's brother, the infielder for UCF. So he hits him inside on the elbow. It was a kind of inside pitch, but it was kind of just a fastball that ran in, whatever. It wasn't like it was wild. It was sort of fastball with too much movement. Then the next guy comes up, and the same thing happens. Another fastball that runs in again and hits him on the arm. So great. 2 on, nobody out. Lovelady sticks with Litchfield, who then walks the next batter. That was the first walk of the game allowed by UCF. And then he threw his next pitch to the next batter in the dirt, and so Lovelady said, "That's it. That's enough. We can't go on with this any longer." So Litchfield gets taken out of the game in a 1-0 count, and he brings in they bring in Zach Hunsaker, and then it got really weird, as if 2 hit-by pitches and a walk to load the bases wasn't weird enough. It gets really weird now. On a 1-1 pitch, Zach Hunsaker induces a pop-up from I want to get the guy's name right. It's
Nelson.
I think it's Matt. Matthew. His name, darn it. Matthew Nelson. Thanks. And you can tell right away that on this pop-up, with lazy high, that right away the first baseman Nick Romano cannot see it. Romano had just come into the game not too long before this as a replacement, and the ball's popped, and he just can't see it. He's got the helpless look, like his arms are up to his side. He's looking around. The ball drops harmlessly about 15 feet behind him. And so now, but while this is happening, while the ball's in flight, you can see the umpire at first base put his arm up, raise his arm to the sky,
pointing up at the sky. Fly. Right. Uh-huh.
Yeah. To signify an infield fly, because there's fewer than 2 out, and there's more than 2 men on base. There's bases loaded, nobody out. So under that rule, the batter is automatically out, no matter if the ball is caught or not. The batter is out, and the runners are free to run at their own risk. Well, when the ball drops, the runners do run at their own risk. In fact, the man on third, Romano, decides to go for the plate. John Montez, the UCF second baseman, comes in from behind Nick Romano, throws home. The throw home to Ben McCabe is well in front of the runner. McCabe steps on home plate thinking he's got an out there at home, but he does, because infield fly, once the runners run, everything turns into a tag play. It's not a force play because the batter's already out. So Because McCabe does not apply the tag at home plate, the runner slides in safely. So FSU has tied the game up on 2 by pitches, a walk, and an infield fly pop-up, an RBI pop-out, really. An RBI pop-out to first base on an infield fly rule. The next batter is intentionally walked to reload the bases so they can set they'll play back in order. And there was a second out. The UCF got the second out with a ground ball to short. They got the force out at home, an actual force out at home to get the second out. But then Hunsicker walked the next batter, Reese Albert, on 5 pitches. FSU wins, scoring 2 runs on 2 of my pitches, 3 walks, and a ball that traveled about 100 feet and stayed in the air for about 10 seconds and wasn't caught.
Yeah, the final line of the bottom of the 10th was 2 runs on no hits and no errors.
Great.
All right, Brian, you are a passionate baseball fan. You watch you've watched Major League Baseball, minor league baseball, college baseball, Japanese baseball, Korean baseball. If it's got a bat and a ball, you're watching it. You're probably watching it in a parking lot. Where does that inning? Have you ever seen an inning like that? Like that? Is that the most bizarre finish ending you've ever seen in baseball?
I mean, I wish I could recall. I wish I had instant recall, but I feel like it is, again, maybe it's knee jerk, but I can't remember seeing something like that. In which, if you took everything into account, that you're playing. If for UCF you're playing on the road, it would be a big win on the road against a ranked team, FSU no less. By the way, FSU was the hottest team in college baseball coming into this game. They had won 5 consecutive games against Virginia, and then top 10 Florida, top 10 Miami. The combined margin of victory in those 5 games was 58-11. They were crushing people. UCF had held them at bay all game long, had taken a lead in the extra innings, and then to see how it all unraveled with a couple of fastballs that ran too far inside. Just something you never see really ever, an infield fly RBI. You've never seen that. And then more walks and just, no, I cannot. I was stunned. I was absolutely stunned last night. I'm still stunned because it's just, I love it. I do love it so much. It sucked for UCF and it's painful for them and I'm sure for the fans, but I'm watching that and I'm just in awe of just the number of ways the baseball can just be so different on any given night. It's so weird. It's so weird.
Murph's tweet's the reason why I actually watched the replay before we recorded here in the dawn hours because I didn't go to sleep. And I still can't believe it. And it happened many hours ago. I'm probably going to watch the replay just to make sure it happened. It's not a dream, deal. What the heck?
This team has been involved in now 8 one-run games. 8. They've only played 20. They've been involved in 8 one-run games. They're 2-6 in those games. And yes, I mean, you can look at every 10-point something where if they had gotten another hit here with runners in position, they could have won this game. If they had made a better pitch here, if they had made one fewer error, the Ole Miss game, the middle game at Ole Miss, they're up by 5-3 going bottom 9. They give up 3 runs in the bottom of the 9th. That stings. That was a tough one. But nothing, I imagine, will stick in their craw much like this game. I mean, maybe there's something down the road that we don't know about. Maybe it happens this weekend at Troy. I don't know.
Don't tempt us like that. Don't tempt the baseball gods like that, please, Murph. Thank you.
Now, the way that this unraveled in the most harmless of fashions. As I wrote, the hardest contact that FSU made in the 2-run 10th inning probably came from the elbows of the guys who got hit by pitches. I mean, there was no firm contact made anywhere, and it was just wildness.
Now, let me, Murph, clarify this: the infield fly rule. Do you think the umpires implemented it correctly?
So by rule, the umpire has to make the judgment that there's a fielder underneath who is well positioned underneath the ball to make the catch. In that situation where Romano clearly doesn't see the ball, you can tell right away he does not see it. You could make the argument that he is not in position to make that catch, and thus it shouldn't be an infield fly. But I understand the impulse from the umpire. It's base loaded, nobody out. You see a lazy pop-up to first base. I mean, just to call infield fly, because who isn't going to be under that? So you can actually go either way on this. I have no problem with the call. He also could have not made the call reasonably and said, well, the first baseman, the closest man to the ball, was not camped under in any way, shape, or form. So it's actually not an infield. But in regardless, I'd love to see this happen more often. I've always said this about Major League Baseball, and I'm sure it can happen in college baseball. I would love to see, like, it would take a lot of planning and teams to be really smart on defense and a lot of like quick thinking. But like you can do this where you can like settle under a fly ball in an infield fly situation. There's more than 2 on, less than 2 out. And try to settle under it, and then all of a sudden, like, lose it and let it drop. But you can sort of, like, let it drop and understand that maybe you get another out of it. Because, obviously, once the infield fly is called, the batter is out. So the ball dropping doesn't hurt you unless the runners start to run. And so why not see if the runners know the rules, too? Because they don't have to run. You know, even if it's first and second, they don't have to run if the ball hits the ground. And in this situation, I don't know if FSU understood that, really well.
I don't think there's any way. I don't think they did. I don't think they would have just gone on his own. No.
And yet clearly UCF didn't either, because if they had understood the rule and seen that the first base umpire had called the infield fly in that situation, McCabe's got to know that that's a tag play. It's not
the problem is, but you've just said it yourself. It's kind of really up to the umpire. And it brings back to me some really weird memories, and I think
some Atlanta Braves fans are having
that Braves Cardinals game, Murph, where they called the infield fly rule and the ball wasn't dropped in left field.
They called an infield fly rule on a ball that was not hit to the infield.
So I think people have always been kind of confused by the infield fly. I'm still confused by it. I didn't know that you just explained it, that really it's up to the umpire. So for all we know, it just so happened. I know this sounds cynical, but if that game is played in John Juliano Park, do they call the infield fly rule there?
Sure, why not? I mean, it doesn't make any difference what stadium is. Again, it doesn't matter where they're playing. It's about where the fielder is in relation to the ball and where the ball is in relation to the infield. And this was clearly in the infield. It was on the dirt, not even close to being on the grass.
Craziest thing. This was one of the craziest Wednesdays of all time in UCF. I mean, I saw a softball shift, an infield fly rule. I mean, it's a hit by pitch. I mean, this is insane. Let's try to move on here because we could spend hours on this inning. Here's my question, Murph. How the hell are they going to get over this to play at Troy in a matter of a day?
Well, they're going to have to find a way one way or the other because
my
thing is like they hang on to win that game, right? They're 10-10, right? And it's like there's a difference between being 10-10 to me and being 9-11 heading into that, right? But anyway, they're going to Troy. I'm sorry, Murph, that now this is a big road series for them, no?
Absolutely. I mean, well, at this point, you're 9-11. Every game is a big game, and because you really need to make up ground now. I mean, you've had too many close losses, and you can't afford if this team wants to have a chance, to build up some momentum before conference play. This is their last opportunity to do it because conference play starts next weekend at USF. I am very curious to see how they get over this. Obviously, one of the tenets of Greg Lovelady's coaching is that every game, the next game is the most important game. So every day is the most important game of the season. So he tries to reset every day to make sure that kids can move on from the past game and realize that, no, it's today's game that's most important. It's today's game that's most important. But I feel like that there at least in the Ole Miss game, there were like a double, there was a home run. Yeah, there was a bad error in that Ole Miss loss, but like otherwise it was really just like good hitters making firm contact and hitting pitches and just doing normal baseball things. Nothing about this was normal. This is just wild, and FSU had no business winning that game, and it just things unraveled. So I'll be interested to see that they move on against Troy. Not a fantastic team this year out of the Sun Belt. They've won their last 2 games, but one thing to watch for in this series is how UCF handles Logan Cerny, a power hitter who has gotten 2 home runs in each of the last 2 games for the Trojans. He has 9 home runs this season. That's among the leaders in all of college baseball. He's 27 RBIs, also among the leaders there too. So that's a big bat to watch for. UCF has to win 2 out of 3. I imagine just to build up some confidence heading into conference play. But again, you're right. I will be very, very intrigued to see if there's any sort of carryover to this, because we're all. I would have to imagine there's got to be some, because that one's got to sting more than anything else.
God, unbelievable, man.
On a positive note, Mike Rooney, who was the analyst for the game on ACC Network, basically said, "Hey, they're a regional team." He was impressed, so we got that going.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, like, Kenny Sirwa did a nice job against a really, really, really hot offense. Gave him a couple of home runs, but otherwise gave him 5 hits, 5 innings. And then the bullpen before the 10th, which was Hunter Patterson, McKay, and David Litchfield, hitless innings. Hunter Patterson, looked good again in a 1-inning stint. And then Litchfield was good, until they were wild in the 10th. I thought overall, and UCF's offense fought back from 2 runs twice. I thought it was good. I thought it really was a step against the hottest team in the sport. But just like how it ended, man. Like I'll never forget that. That was amazing.
Unbelievable. It's. See, this is why I say baseball was a game that was invented by lawyers, because only they can come up with exceptions to literally every rule in the book.
well, let me here, Murph. Now you kind of argued with me and Jeff. Let's go back to that 1-run stat, 2 and 6. Jeff, you kind of said, "Oh, that's a fluke thing." No, whatever. But here's my counter to that. That tells me that the ball ain't bouncing the way my concern is, could this just be one of those years where the ball's just not meant to be here? Like, it's not going to bounce their way here? Because, after a loss like this, I question everything right now.
Yeah. See, that's the sort of thing where I'd be like, I have no idea what that means, because that's not analytical, or that's totally subjective. There's no way to measure whether or not the ball's not bouncing in their direction. I do think 1-run losses are normally fluky. Unfortunately, you can have a full season worth of flukes where even bad teams can win a ton of 1-run games. It's just, it's basically, what do you do with a pitch here or there? It's, when you're talking about one pitch in the game of a couple 100 pitches, those things can be fluky. So I don't think there's anything that we can take from 2 and 6 and say, well, there's this they're not doing correctly. Certainly, they're not hitting with runners in scoring position well enough, but that too in itself is fluky, because clutch hitting is sort of overrated. And anyway, I'm getting too far deep in the weeds here. I think this team has a lot of talent. I think this team's lineup, when healthy, is really good. They have a couple guys who need to come. They have one guy, I think they need to get Nick Romano back on track, but their offense is really good. They have a couple of really nice pitchers right now, and Colton Gordon, AJ Jones, Kenny Sirwa is getting stretched out. I have issues, obviously, with the bullpen, the defense, the lack of contact at times. They struck out too much still. But it's a good team. It's just that, they've come on the short end of some games. Unfortunately, there's really nothing much else you can ascribe to it. It's just like, they've been unlucky at times, and sometimes they put themselves in holes because of the lack of hitting and with runners on base. But again, a pitch here or there changes things. So it's hard to overreact to 2 and 6. It's just like, well, they lost, and it's kind of unlucky. It is.
Golly.
I'll end on a positive note. I've got the live Warren Nolan live RPI. UCF Baseball moves up a spot to 83 as a result of that game.
All right.
I'm your source for all live RPI numbers here on the Black and Gold Banneret.
All right. We'll take it. I'm fine with that. So anyway, all right.
Games. Oh,
just got
welcome back, sports. Can we let's just have 300 baseball and softball games a year, Murph, right? Why do we have to have an off? Let's just play every day.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, when we get back, we have more heartbreak that we have to deal with. UCF women's basketball losing in the first round of the NCAA tournament. We'll recap that to Northwestern. And we'll also take a look at what else is going on around the rest of the world of UCF sports. We've got volleyball firing back up after a weekend off, and lots more to talk about. Tennis also when we return. It's the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't go away. We'll be right back.
Today's episode is brought to you by Cars.com. With over 2 million vehicles and 50,000 more added every day, Cars.com will match you with the perfect car for you, your budget, your life, your style. And if you're ready to say goodbye to your current car, Cars.com will get you an instant offer to cash it in. Just start by entering your license plate and get matched with a local dealer who will write you the check. So whether you're looking to buy or sell, just go to Cars.com. It's magical.
Welcome back to the show. Jeff, Eric, and Brian with you here on this Thursday morning. We're recording this podcast, and we're still licking our wounds from UCF women's basketball, seeing their season come to an abrupt end in the first round of the NCAA tournament against Northwestern. 62-51 was the final out in San Antonio. It was, it was heartbreaking because it just, there's a part of this, guys, that just makes me feel like this program is somehow just snake bit, because 6 appearances in the NCAA tournament, no victories yet. They were right there with Northwestern throughout the entire first half, and I thought, okay, this is going to come down to defense down the stretch, and this is what we came here for. I like UCF in close games. This is what's going to happen. And then all of a sudden, about midway through the second quarter, Diamond Battles goes down with an apparent right leg injury. We can't speculate. We don't want to speculate. We don't know what it is. All we know is that it was horrifying. And, at the time of the game, she had 6 points, 2 for 4 shooting. She was playing well. The defense was playing well. And the whole thing kind of just unraveled after that happened. And UCF ends up losing the game by 11, despite a valiant effort to try and get back into it. Late in the fourth, Northwestern's defense was just too good. Leading scorer was Lindsey Pulliam, 25 points, and she was great because Veronica Burton, frankly, wasn't for Northwestern. She was just 1 of 7. So UCF did a good job of taking out the number 1 option for Northwestern, but couldn't take out the number 2 option. Courtney Shaw had a very good game for Northwestern as well, 12 points on 5 of 9 shooting. She was plus 21 on the game, but gosh, it's just this one just hurt. This hurt in more ways than one. Northwestern forced UCF into way too many turnovers. 20 turnovers, 10 of them in the first quarter, and got 21 points off of those 20 turnovers. So, Eric, I'll start with you. It's just, it's so hard to see this happen to this team after the great season that they had.
It's a what-if type of scenario, as I wrote about earlier this week on the blackandgoldbanneret.com. Cheap plug. Make sure you check it out. The injury to Diamond Battle, it looked bad. First of all, the most important thing, hopefully she's going to be okay and recovers, and they'll be fine. I think that's the bigger picture there. As far as the game's concerned, Pulliam was the difference. And, don't take it from me. Listen to Coach Abe here on the postgame. Yeah, missing Diamond really hurt him, especially in that third quarter, because nobody else stepped up.
Yeah, I think, too, Diamond actually calls all the plays. Diamond actually, knows where to kick. Diamond actually, gets in the paint and dumps. So I think that's why Moss stepped up, in the third and fourth quarter. She knew she had to for, Diamond. So, I'm just going to keep saying it. It's just not an excuse, but everybody's just so used to Diamond playing 40 minutes, just like they're so used to Moss being out there. And so, obviously we got to use this as a learning experience. And when one leader goes down, somebody else there's got to be more than one step up. Other people got to step up. Obviously Moss had playing experience in the NCAA tournament, so did Diamond. Those are the only 2 on our team that's ever played in the NCAA tournament. So hopefully now everybody will be back next year and we'll have this experience and we can really build on it.
All right, that was Coach Abe from the post game, and obviously Masani Kaba, I should say, stepped up. I mean, she led the team in points, rebounds, and assists. Monster game for her. But the problem was nobody else stepped up when Diamond Battles got hurt, and that was kind of the story of UCF here at the end of the year, in the conference championship game, and here in that nobody outside of Kaba and Diamond Battles stepped up in those two games, and they didn't get production out of those. They struggled in that third quarter, going 3 of 15 from the field, scoring only 7 points against a very good Northwestern defense. And they just didn't have enough offense at the end of the day. And I think as you're looking forward to next season and beyond, that's something they need to improve on, is have some players to step up and score. This was a game. This is where you missed a KK Wright type of player. And I think some of those players missed her too, because it's not that easy to take over games. Some of the great ones are the only ones that can do it. And I don't think the team had it in this roster this year, except for the occasional Diamond Battles taking over. But Diamonds really shouldn't be that player for you. It should be others. But, Diamond's a great leader, and they missed him. And it'll be a what if, because what if the American Conference doesn't award USF a forfeit? You could be regular season champions. What if you didn't have a bad second quarter in the conference championship game in Texas against USF? You could have won that. What if Diamond Battles doesn't go down? Maybe you would be playing Louisville. Maybe you get that elusive first ever win in the NCAA tournament for the program history. But it's an incredible season, 16-5 in a COVID year. I think we have to kind of look there. I know it's easy to go the what if route. The coaches, you heard them, the program, I think internally they feel that way. But 16-5, replacing arguably the greatest player in program history in a COVID year to get to an NCAA tournament, to me, I still think it's a successful year.
Yeah. If you're Coach Abe and you're looking at how this team is structured heading into next season, and of course, we have, we don't know what's going to become of Diamond at this point. We don't know what the extent of the injury is, but we know that you're most likely losing Masani Kaba. You do bring back players such as Tay Sanders. You're bringing back Brittany Smith. You're going to get an even better Destiny Thomas next year. Alicia Lewis is coming back. When you look at this team, how it's set up for next year, I have to correct myself. They're not going to have. Well, they might have Cortasia Sanders back. She's listed as a senior, but remember, this is basically a free year.
We don't know. All the seniors could be back. We just don't. I mean, that's kind of the hard thing to predict nowadays with these rosters. You just don't know. Yeah,
but when you look at who they have coming in, what's going to be the big priority? Is it going to be developing the freshmen that are coming in? Because like you've said before, they have a couple of really good freshmen who are expected to come in and contribute right away. Or do we try to extend the veterans one more year and try and really push this thing over the top?
Both. I mean, the staff, they've been building towards this season that's coming up with the players that's coming back, as well as the recruits that coming in. They got a 4-star guard coming in. They've got another player coming in that's played at USA Basketball. Those are two freshmen. They think they can make an immediate impact, like big time. The Jewel kid, the 4-star, is, from what I've been told, is the best recruit in the Abe era. And, they think she's better. She's better than KK. And they think she'll be way ahead of KK, what KK was her first couple years. Now, whether that all happens or not, who knows? But you add those pieces to the returning players, they're going to be they're going to be the favorites in the league alongside South Florida for the conference. I don't think there's any question. And then you hope that the players that all come back gain this experience that Coach Abe talked about, having this experience, this taste there of playing in the NCAA tournament, of playing in the conference championship game, to grow from that and push that forward next year to maybe break that glass ceiling.
Yeah. All right. Well, it's going to be, by the way, the two recruits we're talking about, Layla Jewett, who's from Woodbridge, Virginia. She's a 5'9" guard. And then Rachel Harjo, who's from Moore, Oklahoma. She's a 6'3" guard/forward. She's officially listed at. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be good. I just, you know me, I always get worried when you're like, oh man, these freshmen are coming, they're going to contribute right away. I'm like, well, freshmen are freshmen. I mean, they're going to kind of, you're going to have some growing pains. I mean, look what happened with men's basketball, right, Murph? I mean, it's, you're going to have, you're going to have those moments with, guys like Jameel Reynolds and Isaiah, and you're going to be like, wow, they're so good. And then there are going to be stretches where you're like, where'd they go? Like, it's so hard to count on freshmen, isn't it?
Sure. Absolutely. Well, I think one of the bigger questions also is, like, what is the status of Diamond Battles come next fall? Like, we know, like, she hyperextended her leg. You can see that. Hyperextended her knee. You can see that on the clip. But we don't know exactly what her injury is. And I don't think we'll find out until, probably media day next year.
Oh, we know if we find out at all.
If she's ready by that point. That's a huge, what if we're going to continue this in the next season. But like Eric said, and Eric, I know you've talked about this with us, like, the coaches have always thought that next year's team was going to be the team that really did a lot of work. This year was kind of like a little ahead of schedule, right?
Yes. I think they thought they could be pretty good this year, but again, you're losing KK Wright. That's good. That's tough to replace and things like that. They really were building towards next year because they knew the way the roster with the recruiting class coming in and all that. They felt that next year, they really were excited about next year's team. But remember, they weren't even sure if, Asia, Todd and Asia Luz were even eligible this year.
Yeah.
And all that. And remember, the difference is in defense of Jameel Reynolds and Isaiah Adams, and Murph has brought this up many a times. Those guys did not have a normal freshman year from the standpoint of with the protocols and COVID. All right. There was
they didn't even get into the off-season program in the summer and the early fall that they would have, right?
And they still played well despite all that. Imagine if they would have had it. I think they would have been more consistent. And I think that's hopefully, knock on wood, that's I think where the women will be having with those two freshmen implementing. And here's the bottom line. I think Abe's earned the trust. I've said this. I think she is now the greatest women's basketball coach in the history of this program. 2 NCAAs, 2 WNITs. I think this was right up there with her first year here as among her best coaching jobs. I'm amazed they went 16-5. To be honest with you, I think they overachieved. They want it now. They want it. They will disagree with that, but I think they overachieved, and it's a credit to her and her style of coaching. I think I think she knows what she's doing, and they'll figure it out. That would be my conclusion is whatever they'll figure it out because they always do.
All right. And before we wrap up this segment with them, I wanted to just, on behalf of us too, get well to Diamond Battles because she's been, we love her to death. I mean, she's been, such an amazing figure for UCF basketball. She played in the shadow of KK for so long. And then finally this year, kind of came to light in her own way. And you hate seeing anybody get hurt. I mean, obviously, but especially her. And so, Diamond, if you're listening, get well soon. We're thinking of you, and we're hoping we see you back out there on that basketball court as soon as humanly possible because we know that's where you want to be. So, all right, we're going to take a quick break. When we get back, we got to talk about soccer. We got to talk about volleyball. We got a lot to talk about still here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Don't go away. Welcome back to the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Jeff Sharon, Eric Lopez, Brian Murphy with you here. Let's go about taking care of all the sports that are really coming down the stretch here at UCF. And I'm going to start, gentlemen, with UCF Volleyball. They had the week off, and now they're receiving votes in the AVCA Top 25. They're the equivalent of 29th. And right now this team is hot. They're 12-1. Had a little bit of a rest here after bombing Cincinnati a couple weeks ago. They finished the regular season this weekend against South Florida, Friday at 7, Saturday at 7. This is a big spot, I think, for UCF because I think they want to finish the regular season. That they get to 14-1 in the regular season here, Eric Lopez. They head into the 14 conference tournament next week. It's going to be held at Cincinnati. And let me update you as well on the standings, which I think we need, because remember, it's East and West, 2 teams from the East, 2 teams from the West. Right now, it looks like it's the one season have both been wrapped up. UCF is the one in the East. Houston is the one in the West. In the East, Cincinnati right now is the top, is the number 2, but they're only 1 match ahead of South Florida. So if USF can somehow pull, excuse me, if Cincinnati can fall back down, there might be a shot for USF here. So they've got something.
Yeah, it's kind of a long shot though, because Cincinnati owns the tiebreaker. They beat them head to head.
That's true.
So that would put them really 2 games
to lose twice, really. Yeah,
we don't want that. What I mean is that means USF would have to win twice, and we definitely don't want that.
Yeah. In the West, I think it's kind of interesting because you have Tulane, who UCF swept earlier this year in a non-conference in a non-conference set. All right, they're 5-3. SMU is right behind them at 4-4. So SMU could possibly catch Tulane this weekend. Let's see here. Tulane is playing Tulsa. And by the way, the SMU Tulane split in the earlier this season. SMU is playing. They're actually done with their conference season right now. They're playing Texas Tech. Or excuse me, no, they finished. No, I beg your pardon. They actually lost to Texas Tech both times in 5 this past weekend. So they actually have that weekend off. So Tulsa has a chance to wrap it up and get that second seed. And so UCF would play as the 1 seed in the East, the number 2 in the West, which would basically be a rematch with Tulane, who, again, they played earlier this year. So I think this is kind of breaking really nice for UCF here. So the question is, Eric, if we throw out the RPI, which we all should, because, again, who's the number 1 in the RPI this week? It's still Fairfield, followed by Sacred Heart.
That's right. Isn't that what you love, Jeffrey, there? See, the numbers don't lie.
No.
Yeah, it's very non-biased.
That's not what I said. That's not what I said. You keep putting words in my mouth, Eric Lopez. Stop doing that. You don't have enough data for the RPI to make any sense of the whole situation. Texas, UNLV, Florida State, Towson. All right. Bowling Green, and then UCF's at 8th, by the way. I would like to let you know.
Yeah.
Which, hey, I'll take it. But man, if you're the committee, like, where do you slot this team? Even if they win the American, where are they?
They're probably going to play Florida State with the winner to play Florida in Omaha. That's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
Why break old habits? We'll see what happens. Because you reported last week.
Here's the thing: they're all going out to Omaha for the tournament.
All right.
So they don't necessarily have to slot them in with all the other Florida teams as they would in any normal year, right?
Yeah, but why break old habits? You know what I mean?
Oh, come on.
No, look, we'll see. It's a valid question. I'm kind of curious. We do need to probably look into like what the format will look like. Because remember, they're down to 48. Yeah. So that would suggest to me, this is the interesting thing. So what is the top 16 going to get a bye?
Yes, top 16 teams get a bye.
How the hell are you gonna figure out the top 16?
Yeah. Committee, that's superior for it. You and your humans who are so infallible. I'm gonna smile on this one. I'm gonna smile. What are they gonna do? All right, let's take the entire Pac-12 and slot them 1 through 12, and then take the top 4 from the Big Ten and slot them accordingly. Congratulations, we finished our top 16. Give me a break.
That's normally what happens anyway. They use the RPI for that anyway. So in a normal year, so it is what it is. The bigger question is going to be: can the American get 2 bids? And the only other team that I think has a shot is Houston, who had a heartbreaking loss to Baylor.
Boy, they played well in that Baylor match.
Great match. By the way, Baylor has like a bunch of 8-footers. That's insane. I watched that match, and I'm like,
Baylor's enormous. It's like, what is going on now?
Like you laugh. You can take shots at the Pac-12 bid, all that, but then we'll see them, and across the net, we're like, oh boy, there's a bunch of trees there. But I thought Houston was very impressive. If I'm the American, you want Houston and UCF to roll over and play in the championship game. You kind of wish you didn't do it. Honestly,
this is what Todd talks about. He's like, why are we having a tournament?
Well, and the other thing I would have said is, why are we having 4 teams? Like, it's clear who the 2 best teams are. Just have the division champs in each division play each other. That's it. Like, just cancel the flights that Cincinnati, just cancel the other 2 teams. Like, we don't need them. Because really, it's not going to help you. It doesn't help you. because the last thing you need is one of them to get knocked off in the semifinals. Now you could miss the whole tournament. So I think the league has a shot at 2 bids. The other question we have to figure out, maybe we'll get the answer after this weekend, is who's gonna get to host the conference championship this fall, right? Because are they going to stick with that rule about whoever wins the regular season hosts the following season's conference tournament, or are they just going to award it to whoever wins the tournament? I think that's important because if you're UCF, if you can get that honor for this fall with the returning players coming back, that's significant, Jeffrey, with McKenna Melville and company. Not to get too far ahead, but I do think that is important. I wish they would just do what soccer does, which whoever wins the regular season that particular year just gets to host, but whatever.
Well, I think the reason why they do that is you might not know you're hosting until literally 2 days before you're hosting.
Yeah.
And in soccer, I mean, that might be a little bit easier to do in soccer. In volleyball, it's a little bit
Why?
Because
Why?
Because it's an indoor facility and it's going to be a little bit different, and the tournament could be a little bit larger too. So, I'm not saying I disagree with you. I'm saying that's probably their rationale.
Soccer figured it out, and soccer in some cases have bigger rosters.
They do have bigger rosters. Yes, you're right.
But
like I said, I'm not saying I agree. I'm not saying I disagree with your rationale.
We should be having this tournament right here, right now, Jeffrey. That's what I'm upset about.
I agree. We should host it in Orlando every year. Orlando. Doesn't everyone want to come to Orlando? I mean,
Murph should be getting ready to cover the volleyball tournament and catching up with Todd and running into you, stuff like that. It'll be
running into Jeff.
Yeah,
All I know is that this team has a chance to do. I think they have a chance to go, not just to win the conference yet. I think that Todd's licking his chops right now because he thinks that. I agree. I do agree with you. Could make a run in the NCAA.
I do agree with you on this. If this tournament is all in Omaha, this might be their best. I'll use the pun here. Best swing to get to the Sweet 16 and beyond. That's the one. When you look at McKenna Melville and that particular senior class, can they join Tyra Harper's class as getting to that Sweet 16? There's 2 UCF teams in the history of in the Division I era that has done it. The 97 UCF team led by Tyra Harper, the Hall of Famer, and Renata Menchikova, the 1-2 punch. And then the 2003 UCF team with Jenny Frank, the Hall of Famer. They made it to the Sweet 16.
Well, no, they didn't make it to the Sweet 16.
Or the second round.
Got in the second round, right?
That's right. They got to the second round. Both teams got to the second round. You're right. So the last year's UCF team, can this team be that first team to get to the Sweet 16? That's what I meant. I haven't slept.
I
haven't slept.
Don't you have the Cuban coffee laying around there? Come on.
Yeah, I do, and that's part of the problem.
Hit it up. You pour yourself another cup. Well, remember, McKenna, Catherine Westlich, they're all junior. Anne-Marie Watson's listed as a senior, but she could. But remember, for a year, they could come back. We don't know.
Right, no, that's why I keep bringing up the hosting the tournament. And if this team can get to the Sweet 16, that increases McKenna Melville now into the conversation and the art of perhaps being the greatest volleyball player in the program history, right with Tyra Harper and Renata Menchikova, if they get to the Sweet 16. And that's a significance. You're right. I do agree with you. This might be their best shot because it's in a neutral court, whereas, let's be honest, in the next fall or next year, you might be going to Florida. So that's a valid point.
Might be going to the O-Dome again. Golly. All right. So they're playing South Florida once again on Friday at 7, and then Saturday at 7 o'clock. Again, both those matches at the venue, and they will both be on ESPN Plus. AAC.
By the way, shout out to Sean Asher, who's the SID for softball and volleyball. Could be staring at two postseason teams.
And has been killing it for both of them, given how good that both of those teams have been this spring. I mean,
honestly,
he's had to be on top of it.
He's the front runner right now for the UCF SID of the Year award right now.
He's the real MVP, right? Well, I mean, I don't want to take away from the others because they've all been real MVPs.
Christ. I feel like we're kind of backhanding, we're kind of slapping other.
I don't want. That's why I'm like, no, stop that. Listen, they have a hard enough job as it is this spring, man. It's just wild. I'm sure that everyone was breathing a sigh of relief when basketball was like, wow, okay, we're through basketball now. We've got now we've got volleyball that we're still working on, and then soccer that we're still working on. Speaking of which, let's talk about soccer. Men's soccer. Eric and Brian, I think they figured it out. They've won 3 in a row. They threw 4 goals at Temple last Saturday at home. They are right now. They've outscored their opponents 8-1 the last 3 matches, and they got a big game in Tampa on Saturday at 7 against South Florida, trying to avenge that 1-goal loss at home that they suffered earlier in the year. They've got South Florida on the road, SMU once again at home on Friday, April the 2nd. That's going to be huge. And then they finish the regular season at Memphis Friday, April 9th. Eric, have they figured it out?
Well, if you listen to Scott Calabrese following the 4-0 win over Temple, he tends to believe that, yes, we have figured it out.
Yeah, it's really nice to see. Just you can tell that the players are in sync. They're cohesive, and they move together. You can see they anticipate each other's ideas and movements and decisions, and so it's really, really great to see. And then you're always wanting players to be rewarded for all their work, because it just reinforces that we're on the right path. And so to have a performance like this, where we score 4 goals, we create even more chances to score, quality chances from multiple sources. It's really nice. Great to see Hata too, and his growth this year. Now a real threat around goal for assists and for goals. So it's great. We're moving in the right direction, clearly.
Scott Calabrese's team is at 4-3, and it's good that they're getting hot at the right time here. But man, they needed the goal scoring to kick it, and they finally did. First game all season that here's how they've scored so far this season, guys. You ready? 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, 4. Now, I don't need to bust out the line graph to tell you that things are improving on the scoring side, isn't it?
They look like the old Knights, yeah. I mean, it was great to see the offense firepower there. Hottie Berry, 2 goals. It's turned into maybe the answer that they've been looking for. Somebody who can finish, and put the ball in the net from the forward position. He has stepped up. Him and Gino Vivi have great chemistry. Mm-hmm. So it's a huge win, and they're back in this mix. I mean, this league is wild right now. You got, Tulsa, SMU, South Florida, UCF, they all can win this league. This league is just very bunched up. And you're right. But in a way, UCF controls it. They go to USF, they host SMU, they can win those and beat Memphis. They win the league remarkably. Yeah. But they got to take one step at a time, and this will be a big one at USF.
Well, here's the standings, right? And remember, they do the point system, right? So Tulsa's leading with 13 points. They're 4-1-1. You got 3-way tie for second between SMU, UCF, and USF at 12 points each. And SMU, by the way, 4-2, UCF 4-3, USF 4-3, and of course, like we mentioned, UCF and USF are facing each other this weekend in Tampa. So Temple at 7 points, Memphis at 3, kind of bringing up the rear there. And we talked about how much more wide open is it now that, obviously UConn has left the league. Unfortunately, Cincinnati ended men's soccer, so it's down to a 6-team league, and 4 of them are right there in the shake of things. So this is going to be a fun little stretch run here. Let's talk about women's soccer here real quick, because they are right now kind of struggling a little bit. They are winless in their last 4 with 2 matches to go. Both of them are at home, Eric, but I think they're at the point right now they got to win the conference tournament in order to get into the NCAAs. Is that right?
Oh, yeah, there's no doubt. I mean, they got to get some momentum going into it.
Yeah.
That's the thing that's frustrating, for Coach. They played a pretty good match against South Florida, gave up a goal in the first half, down 1-0. They tied it up 1-1, and then, they got a call against them in the box where USF gets a penalty kick.
Well, you were fired up about that one on Twitter.
Well, it was a terrible call. The girl fell down for USF, and the UCF player didn't. It's not like tackled her. She was going for the ball, and she fell down. And in soccer nowadays, if you fall down, you get, as long as you can, act like, you've been shot, then you'll get a call from the soccer officials because they're dumb. They don't know any better. So, unfortunately, this goes
canceled.
This goes against UCF, and they just got to build momentum in those last two matches going into the conference tournament. Because you're right, because they're either going to have to play at Memphis, or they're going to have to play at South Florida, because those are clearly going to be the top two teams. They're both in the top 25, and right now they probably would represent the American as a two-bid league with those two. So you're right, UCF would have to crash the party and win the tournament and sneak in that way.
Well, the good news is for UCF right now, their last two games are at home, including Sunday at noon against SMU. Then they have a week off, and then April 11th, Sunday against Houston at home. SMU is third to last in the league. Houston is second to last in the league. So you can at least get above 500 before the conference tournament, and then take your chances, right? Roll the dice and see what happens. But right now they're in fourth behind ECU, who's third. USF, like you mentioned, is in second. And Memphis, who is leading the way in first. Memphis having a really good year, 6-1. And how about and USF undefeated, 5-0-1 on the season. UCF came that close to handing them, handing them a tie at least. But remember the conference championship Thursday, April 15th through Saturday, April 17th. And that's a four-team setup, semifinals and finals. So right now UCF is hanging on to that number 4 slot, 1 point ahead of Cincinnati with those two games left to go. So I can't believe we're about to say this. Right now, these two games against SMU and Houston, they're critical to try and put yourself with a little distance between you and Cincinnati, and to lock up that number 4 slot. So I don't know. We'll see. All right. Tennis. Boys, I know you've been excited to talk about tennis. This is like the highlight of the show all the time, because the men and the women are right now, again, on a roll. Talk about the women first. They have won 3 in a row. They beat, they're getting back into action against SMU on Sunday at noon, and that's at home at the USTA National Campus. And I want to pull up the ITAs, Eric, because I know, and Brian, because I know how much you guys love those. But we have some individual rankings that we got to talk about too, right? So, on the women's side, UCF right now is 18th, and they are. And I want to pull up, see if do we have any. We got a couple of teams from, or a couple of people from singles who are ranked. Valeria Zaleva is 25th in the country. Rebecca Stolmar's 33rd. This is shaping up to be really interesting, and. And by the way, Evgenia Levashova, let's not forget about her. She's 93, so she's top 100. 3 top 100 players in singles. This is feeling. I still maintain that this is this team has as good a shot to win a national title as anybody. And in doubles, by the way, your favorite team, Eric, Rebecca Stolmar and Marie Mattel, they're 32nd in doubles. So. What do they have left right now? What do you want to see them do against SMU and before they travel out to Oklahoma for that big pair?
Keep rolling, going into there. Just keep it doing. If it ain't broke, no need to fix it. So just
don't fix it. Are we thinking national seed this year?
I hope so. They may have to win some road matches there, but yeah, I would hope so. That's why I keep waiting to see where the rankings end up. But yeah, I think that's very plausible for sure.
Okay. So now let's take a look. I want to bring up the men as well here, because they're at 9-3. Most recently on Wednesday, a big win for them, 6-1 over Arkansas. They bounced back after the loss at Georgia, which was a 4-2 loss, but it was tighter than it looked, right? And that's the number 17 team in the country. This is a tough stretch because 5 straight ranked opponents: 17 Georgia, 31 Arkansas, 48 SMU, 24 Oklahoma. 18 Oklahoma State. 4 of those 5 on the road. Friday, they go to SMU, followed by Saturday at Oklahoma, Sunday at Oklahoma State. So this is the big show-me weekend for the men off that 6-1 win against Arkansas. And then by the way, they got Wake Forest right after that. So this is the big spot for them, don't you think, too?
Well, yeah, let's start. I mean, they beat Arkansas 6-1. I mean, that's a good win. I mean, that's a big quality win there. So that's the stretch for them. They're moving forward. But let me give a shout out to Gabe DeCamps, who keeps beating ranked guys over and over again. and I've said this, I think Gabe DeCamps is going on his way to being the greatest UCF men's tennis player of all time. I really do think he's going to play professionally. He's going to make a living. Murph, we may have to go to Wimbledon or a U.S. Open down the road to see him to cover a UCF tennis player. Huh?
Made it happen.
No, that would be something. Can I get the expense flight kind of?
Do you have a preference? Which major? Like, if you had to pick,
I'll send it up the chain. We'll see what we can do.
So yeah, thanks. If you had to pick, Murph, if you had to pick one of the four majors, I could tell you, hey, Gabe DeCamps is going to play in all four majors. You get to pick one of them to cover it. Which major would you pick? Would you pick the Australian Open in January, February range? Would you pick the French Open in May? Would you pick Wimbledon in July or the U.S. Open in August, September?
Well, I mean, if we're talking about tennis, it's Wimbledon. But if we're talking about where I want to go to the French Open because I want to go to Paris more than anything else. But I don't know. Again, I don't know how Gabe plays on clay. And so let's just play it safe and go, look, it's Wimbledon. It's the granddaddy, really. Let's just go there. It's fine.
I would like to see him on the U.S. Open. Hard court, right? Chance to see him win.
Play on court. I know. College is the hard courts. I get it. No, there's nothing aesthetically pleasing about hard courts. Just play on grass.
Wow. Whoa.
God.
Murph is
anti-hard court.
Really is whatever.
I should mention that Gabe DeCamps right now is ranked 4th in the country in singles. 4th, all right? Behind only Hadi Habib of Texas A&M, Duarte Valle of Florida, and Daniel Rodriguez of USC. In addition to that, is that? Okay, no, never mind. And then in addition to that, doubles, he and Trey Hildebrand are 21st in the country. Highest ranked UCF players on that end. So this is turning into a really special year. And he's been towing the line for UCF. It's really been a lot of fun to watch him play.
Put it this way. When I revive my UCF 250 series, which we may call it something else, I don't know, this summer. Not only is he going to be in there, but he might be the highest ranked Gabe of all UCF male athletes.
Wow. I love it.
All right. So as we wrap it up here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast, real quick free agency news out of the NFL. Okay, Murph?
Yes.
Matt Prater is coming back.
Didn't we talked about Matt last week, did we not?
Well, we mentioned it, but I want to dive into it a little bit more because he's in Arizona.
Yes.
And are we going to see Matt Prater is very quietly racking up NFL records like crazy.
Don't even bring it up.
With Kyler Murray as the quarterback out there.
Okay.
Could we see him like become the NFL's all-time leader in extra points? I'm fully expecting this to happen.
What? I mean, I don't know. Okay. Oh God.
You take that one, Murph.
I, as a person who has made most of my living in my professional life as a fantasy sports writer, have come to despise kickers at every turn because in the soup that I swim in the circles that I revolve in, they are the absolute worst. They're a nuisance. So it's hard for me to say that, like, yes, he's going to come in and kick out all these extra points because, like, kickers are so dependent on everything around them more than just their actual innate skill. So it's, is he going to kick a ton of extra points? I don't know. Is that offense going to be more efficient this year? Maybe. This is a long-winded way of me saying, Jeff, I hate your question. I will not acknowledge it or address it. And so we move forward. But look, as I said last week when we talked about it then, Matt Prater has a really interesting way of picking places to play that are very favorable to kickers.
Yeah. Well, hey.
Mile High. Yeah, he's played Mile High. He's played indoors in Detroit. And now, indoors or outdoors in Arizona.
Before he was in Denver, he was in Atlanta briefly, right? They play in a dome too.
Was he in Atlanta? I don't even remember.
Had a cup of coffee in Atlanta before he went to Denver.
Okay, but now in Arizona, you can get another controlled environment, and I've heard that people really like kicking on that grass. That's a really good kicking grass environment. So yeah,
What a show for you! What a show for you, Murph. You breaking down the infield fly rule and then kicking in the grass, and I mean, this is like top notch material from you tonight.
Wow, it's really my shining moments.
I should clarify for the record that Matt Prater is currently 31st all time in the NFL in extra points made with 491. The record holder, George Blanda.
Yeah,
943 extra points.
Yeah, he played till like he was 80 years old.
Yeah, he was. I think they wheeled him right from the Oakland Coliseum right to the mausoleum. But anyway,
well, Matthew Prater already has what? He has the record for. I believe he still has the NFL record for longest field goal. Correct,
he still does. Yards. Correct, 64 yards. Yeah,
he has the record for most 50-yard field goals made. I don't know.
That to me is the most impressive one, right?
Yeah.
If I'm an NFL kicker, that's kind of the record I want. It's kind of like how I've always said, if I was an actor, I'd want to win a Screen Actors Guild Award.
Look, no matter how his career ends up here, it's been just a phenomenal career for a lot of people that for a guy that UCF fans I think maybe disliked on his way out the door for how everything ended, but he's been generally a fantastic kicker for 15 years now.
Yeah, long time.
By the way, I did see that he was 1 for 4 in Atlanta. No wonder I misremembered that.
Matt probably misremembers that. There was one additional signing from last week. Brashad Perriman is going to the Detroit Lions.
Oh boy,
the franchise for which his dad played for quite some time. Yeah. His dad, Brett Perriman. Brashad has right now his. By the way, we have an NFL Move roster tracker courtesy of Savage Luke Saris up there on Black and Gold Banneret right now. 1 year, $3 million. It's a real prove it contract for Brashad, who has 16 career through 6 seasons in the NFL. He's got 14 touchdowns and 2,000 yards. This is a spot for him where he's really going to have to develop some chemistry with the new quarterback there, Jared Goff, too, and quick, right, Murph?
Well, yeah, and it's a team that needs wide receivers right now. They don't have either Marvin Jones or Kenny Galladay.
Kenny Galladay, much to our pleasure, coming to the New York Giants, right?
Oh, baby. Oh, I'm so excited. Anyway, yes, they need receivers in Detroit. Probably going to have a priority of drafting a wide receiver in the draft. We know what Brashad does. He's a field stretcher. It's not exactly the greatest match when your quarterback is Jared Goff, who has shown a lot of hesitancy to throw it deep, is more reliant on a lot of underneath stuff. So it'll be interesting to see how that combination works. It would have been a lot better if his quarterback was Matthew Stafford, but it is what it is. It's hey, at least he continues to play in the NFL, which is something that 2-3 years ago, it looked like his career was just about on the end. He sort of, came alive again in that short stay with Winston in Tampa Bay, and got himself a deal with the Jets, now with the Lions. I think his if you told me 3 years ago that he would still be an NFL receiver in 2021, I would say that's not true. But he's done a pretty good job of extending his career.
You know what's good? He's no longer a New York Jet. Like that alone is.
I don't know. I mean, we'll see what they do with the quarterback position there, but I kind of like the Jets, and I like what they're doing. Kind of building an offensive roster right now, but whatever. I mean, it's the Jets. We're gonna hate on them. People are gonna jokes because it's easy, but I don't mind what they're doing. Whatever.
Watch yourself there.
Yeah, right. I know. But as a Giants fan, I still don't want to hate the Jets. Again, Kenny Galladay, man, so sick. Oh my God. Oh,
Kenny Galladay,
so sweet.
It's gonna be great. Now we need Daniel Jones to figure it out. All right, let's wrap this thing up here on the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. Always follow us at UCF_Banneret on Twitter. Follow us individually, Jeff_Sharon, Eric Lopez Elo, Spokes_Murphy, and of course, you can follow us on Facebook, Facebook.com/Black and Gold Banneret. If you like what you're hearing for the first time, subscribe to us. We are available on Apple and Android, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Black and Gold Banneret. If you already subscribe to us, tell a friend, please. We're looking to increase our audience as usual. We have to do that. That's a podcast thing, right? And leave us a comment and a rating. We appreciate it as always. However you can rate us, make sure you do so. Wow, what a weekend, man. We got another, and we're only just getting started. Another weekend coming up. Guys, next weekend we got Pro Day on April the 1st. We're going to start talking about NFL draft stuff. It's going to start getting crazy.
And don't forget, if you're looking for something to do on Saturday, try to come out to the Bounce House. UCF will be holding another public practice, as they did last Saturday. UCF will be holding another public practice, their second of the spring, this Saturday. I believe it starts at 10 o'clock. So see if you can get in there. They will be doing more contact drills, some live tackling this time around, which is more than they did last week when we saw them. So, and then we'll talk to Gus Malzahn again after the practice and see if we can mine any nuggets of gold there as he slowly implements his systems offensively and defensively.
And the spring game, April the 10th at noon, and we'll be there for that as well. All right, so for Eric Lopez and Brian Murphy, I'm Jeff Sharon saying thank you so much for listening. This has been the Black and Gold Banneret Podcast. We will catch you next week.